Hello, friends. All right. We are gonna get going here. I'm in my car. I've got some great questions from you guys. Trying to prop you here. Let's see. Hi, Lauren. All right, if you guys can see me, go ahead and give me like a thumbs up or a hi, so I know that you can hear me. Yay! All right, Lauren, I know we're here now. Okay, so I am going to answer the questions that were put up on the post yesterday, and if anyone jumps on and wants to ask a question while we're here live, go ahead and put your question in. I will do my best to answer all of them. I usually plan on spending about an hour here, so write me questions if you have them. But I'm going to start by answering all the questions on our post from yesterday. So the first question was introducing solids. And what do we do about introducing solids? My baby's 6 months old, but not yet interested. We are trying baby-led weaning, but baby doesn't seem interested, just wants to nurse all day long. So introduction of solids can be done a couple different ways. I personally really like baby-led weaning. If you're unsure of what that technique is, you can go ahead and look it up. But we get confused in our country because the word weaning here means to stop breastfeeding. But baby-led weaning doesn't mean you stop breastfeeding. It means baby-led introduction of solids. So this is a European term, and weaning in Europe means to introduce solids. So baby-led weaning means baby-led introduction of solids. And there are a lot of interesting techniques and ideas around baby-led weaning and why it's a much better option for some people than purees and spoon feeding. Hi, everybody. Yay. You added a question 30 minutes ago, Lauren. I just looked it up and I will answer it. I just screenshotted all of those questions, so I'll probably be jumping back and forth to make sure I answer them, but I just looked them all up, so don't worry. When it comes to introducing solids, one of the baby-led weaning ideas is that we really wait for the baby to show signs of readiness as opposed to hitting a certain age and then assuming they're ready for solids. So in our country, we say, oh, once your baby's 6 months old, you introduce solids, just like that. And we also in our country are like, if your baby goes over 40 weeks, we induce them and we get them out because that's how it should be. And so the idea of baby-led weaning is a little bit more relaxed on the side of when does this actually have to happen. I want you to think about, like, for example, when young girls start their period, we don't expect that every little girl is going to start her period when she's 13 years old and 4 months and 2 days. And if she doesn't, then we give her hormone replacement therapy to make it happen. We don't do that. We just know that, like, every little girl's body is going to mature at a different rate, and she's going to be ready to start her cycle at a different time. And that's fine. We just get her educated about what that's going to be like, and when she starts her period, we support her. And so that starts from the beginning, like from when a baby's ready to be born, but also when a baby's ready to eat. This is a huge milestone. It's a huge shift, and not every baby's going to be ready to eat at the same time. Not every baby's going to be developmentally ready to eat at the same time. So if you've got a 6-month-old that's not interested in eating, that's okay. It's like having that 13-year-old who hasn't started her period. No problem. We're just going to wait and look for those signs of readiness. So a child should be sitting completely unassisted on their own. They should be able to use a pinch or grasp to pick up something and bring it to their mouth. Their tongue thrust reflex should be gone. So if you notice, little babies have a tongue thrust reflex, and something gets in their mouth, it's a reflex that's protective of their airway that gets it out. Blah. So if you're trying to feed your baby and they're doing this, they're not ready their body is telling you they're not ready for food. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, but my child grabs and puts everything in their mouth. When I hold them and I'm eating, they're grabbing my food, they're grabbing my fork, they're trying to feed themselves, they're clearly ready to eat. And that can be confusing, because the baby will grab anything and put it in its mouth. They are developmentally learning how to grab something and bring it to their face. So you can give them fake food and they're going to grab it and bring it to their face. You could give them poop and they'll grab it and they'll bring it to their face. They're not eager to eat. They're eager to practice the skill of, let me grab something and bring it to my mouth. The mouth is one of the best ways a baby has to explore. So they will bring everything to their mouth. That is their way of figuring out texture, taste. Their ability to explore includes their mouth. So when we have a baby who's 6 months old and sitting on our lap and watching us eat and watching us and trying to grab the fork and trying to bring it to their mouth, we sometimes think, oh my gosh, this baby's ready to eat. No. They're developmentally practicing watching what's going on. They're practicing the skill of, let me grab that and bring it to my mouth, but they may not actually be ready to eat. One of the things we did for my second son, when my daughter was 2 and he was little, we would sit him at the table with us, but he wasn't developmentally ready to eat yet. But we would give him fake food from her fake kitchen, and he would sit there and gnaw on pretend fake food and think that he was participating and part of the family. And he participated in mealtime, but he didn't eat because his body wasn't ready. So I think you just have to be patient and know that for baby-led weaning, a lot of times babies are ready closer to 7, 8, or 9 months, not 6 months. So I would just patiently wait and continue to watch your baby's development, and know that once they are completely sitting on their own and they're doing this grasp instead of the palmar grasp, that's another indication that their gut is actually ready. So there's a belief that there's a connection between this skill and the development of the GI tract and like gut bacteria, and that when a baby can do this and get something to their mouth with like a pincher, that their body's more ready for food. So I would just be patient and wait, and we would expect a 6-month-old to nurse a ton. Remember, food is just for fun before 1. So breast milk is your baby's source of food for the first year. So any food that they're given is just for fun on top of breast milk, but they should be nursing like crazy all the time, and feeding really frequently is perfect and expected. Okay. Next question. Let me see if I can remember it. Christina asked, I know hers wasn't the next on the list, but I remember it. Christina asked, how often should she be pumping? So Christina is working now full 8-hour days away from her baby, and Christina's baby just turned 2. So when you are away from a 2-year-old, usually women are not pumping at all. Usually once a baby hits 1, a mom will choose to stop pumping. Excuse me, 1 second. Sorry, tickle in my throat. So any pumping that's done past 1 year of age for a mommy that's away at work is great, but not necessary. So there's 2 conversations here. One, a lot of times moms think they have to pump in order to maintain their supply. Like, I got to pump while I'm at work to maintain my supply. Once you are at this stage in breastfeeding, that's just simply not true. You could go a couple days without pumping and still have a fine supply for your child. No problem. Your body will adjust and feed when your baby needs to feed, and decrease supply when your baby doesn't need to feed as much. And there's not anything at this point you can do to mess that up. So that's a non-issue. The other thing, the only issue for someone like Christina, who is away from her baby and feeling like she needs to pump, the only reason you would pump is if you felt like you were going to get mastitis or clogged ducts. So we want to make sure that you're moving milk just so you're not getting clogged ducts or mastitis. So for her case, she's feeling really full at certain points in her day. So if you're feeling really full, then yes, it's a really good time to pump, but the goal only being to move a tiny bit of milk so that you feel comfortable again, and not a full pumping session. So yay, hi Christina, I'm talking to you right now. So you'll have to go back and listen to the last couple minutes if you just jumped on. But the big goal for you, Christina, in pumping is simply to not get mastitis. That's it. Move enough milk that you don't get a clogged duct and you don't get mastitis. So there's nothing that you need to do pumping wise to maintain a supply for Zoe. She will have a supply whether you pump consistently or not. And once a baby is 1 year old, we usually suggest to moms not to pump at work anymore. They don't need to. So if you want to pump at work, it's only because we are making sure you don't have mastitis or clogged ducts. And when you're pumping for that purpose, you're not pumping to get a whole bunch of milk, you're pumping just to make sure you don't have clogged ducts and mastitis, then you don't pump for very long. You pump for just a couple minutes, you move a little bit of milk, you pump for comfort, which we call pumping for comfort. Is like if you're feeling like, oh, my boobs hurt, they're so full, then you pump for like 5 minutes until they don't hurt like that anymore. And that's it. You don't have to pump for a long period of time. You don't have to move a lot of milk. You just want to move a little bit so that you're not going to run the risk of having those other issues. And I would say, so the goal being potentially to let your breasts be full but not painful. So if they're painful, you pump a little bit. But them sitting full is not a bad thing, because them sitting full is helping to train your body that, oh, Monday through Friday, well, during the day, I don't need to make as much milk. I'm not with Zoe. But when I'm home at night, that's when my milk production kind of kicks up, and your body can adjust like that. So your body will get to the point eventually, especially if you're not pumping completely, but you're pumping just a little bit, where it's not producing as much during the day, and it increases, not increases, but it continues its production when you're with your baby. So that would be the goal, because you don't really want to be stuck to your pump every single day. Now, if you feel like I really, really, really want to have a lot of milk, I want to be able to donate it, I think at some point you'd put that, your boobs don't release milk until 10 minutes. Are you doing all of the, so Christina wrote here, my boobs don't release milk until 10 minutes. Are you doing all the things to stimulate a letdown? So it's a letdown stimulation that you're looking for. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes for a letdown to happen for most women. But usually you need to be really, really feel really safe and relaxed wherever you are. So if you are in a room that doesn't have a lock, or you're feeling nervous, you're not gonna be able to have a letdown. So you have to be really, really relaxed, safe, and massaging and doing the milkshake and doing all of the I would watch a video of Zoe, maybe bring something that smells like her, to stimulate that letdown. So yeah, you just want to stimulate a letdown, and you would pump. So from when you stimulate your letdown, you would pump 5 minutes-ish after that. So pumping prior to a letdown doesn't count, so to say. You want to, when your letdown happens, that's when you would potentially start counting in that 5 minutes or 10 minutes of pumping to move just a little bit of milk. Yes, you're doing the massage and milkshake. Wonderful. So the other thing that I would potentially say, Christina, if you're not having a letdown less than 10 minutes, is that you shouldn't be pumping. You don't need to pump. When your breasts feel really, really, I don't know you've had this experience, is that when your breasts feel really, really, really full, they're where is this baby? Sometimes you just have a letdown, even though there's no stimulation, there's no baby around, your body just is there's got to be a baby somewhere, and your milk just lets down because there's no more, just can't hold it anymore. So that's when I would always pump at work, is I would wait, get to the point where I feel oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to have a letdown any minute. Let me go pump. And then I would pump when my body was already having a letdown, instead of trying to pump prior. Now, this is only, everyone who's listening to this is only because she has a 2-year-old. This is not how you would pump at work for a 5-month-old or a 4-month-old or an under 1-year-old. This is just, she's got a 2-year-old, and we need to make sure the milk doesn't get stuck. That is the only goal. Now, if your goal is to pump and store milk and to donate it, that's fine. And you can totally do that, but you do run the risk of having an oversupply, because once again, your baby is not doing that. She's not stimulating that, and she's going to make up for what she wants when you're together. So she's going to get what she needs the hours that you're together, and if you're pumping during the hours you're away, you're going to run the risk of having an oversupply, which of course is up to you. And if you want to do that and store milk and donate it, that's fine too. I would suggest, if you are going to store milk like that, you had talked about how you're bringing it home and putting it all together in the same bag. I would store it in much smaller amounts, because you have to think, if you're donating to someone, they probably have a tiny baby, and if they have to defrost 8 ounces and then their baby only takes 2 ounces, they're throwing away 6 ounces because they can't reheat it. So it's much, much, much better to store in 1 ounce or 2 ounce little bags. So I would come home, if you've got an ounce or 2, I would store it flat. You can put it in a milk bag, lay it flat in your freezer so it freezes flat, so that it's really easy to defrost. And then I wouldn't necessarily stockpile into one huge bag, because then defrosting it, you just kind of mess up whoever's trying to feed the baby, because they're not going to feed that much milk in one feeding. I don't know if that makes sense. So anyways, that's what I would do. If you are going to store milk to donate it, I would bring it home. You can technically leave it in the fridge for 5 days, but I would bring it home and in 1 and 2 ounce bags, freeze it and just throw it straight into your freezer. And then you'll have that little stockpile to give to that brand new mommy who says, I need an ounce to make it through this first, time in my postpartum. So, okay. Yay, I'm glad this is all making sense. Let me think about what the other questions were. There was a question about babies sleeping, 5-month-old baby who's sleeping. Let me look at the question specifically. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry. The next question was about having a slacker boob. Yay! Raise your hand if you have a slacker boob. Or one, we call it like the stud and the dud, right? The one who's the overproducer, and then the one who doesn't seem to keep up very well. So know, first of all, that it is very, very common and almost expected that you would have one boob that is going to produce more than another boob. Just happens. There are a couple different reasons we think this happens. One, just the structure. I'll repeat. Just the structure of your breasts. Like, some breasts have more milk-making tissue than other breasts. Our like I always say, like, you know, guys' balls are not exactly even. Like, one hangs a little lower than the other. Like, it's fine that our boobs are uneven too. One might hang a little lower than the other. Not a big deal. So a little anecdotal story for you here. I have very small breasts, like smaller than an A cup, for my entire life. And nursing my first 2 kiddos, I would venture to say, semi-even supply. When I would pump at work, I would always get more out of one side, but not a ton more. Like, the difference was, but I also wasn't pumping a ton. I might get like 2.5 ounces out of one breast and like 1.5 out of 1 and 2 or something. Anyways, not a huge difference. A year ago, so my third child is now 2, almost 2. A year ago, I had a mole removed on my breast, my left breast. I have no idea if this was coincidence. I have no idea what happened. But after having that mole removed, I had, there was some trauma to the tissue, right? It was superficial, but there were stitches, and it was really sensitive and really tender and really sore. And for a week and a half or whatever, I had stitches in there. And I nursed still on that side, but it was like a little bit hard to do because my son was really handsy and I had to keep him from pulling on the stitches. And my husband had to remove the stitches, and it was this whole thing. Ever since then, this breast has not produced the same amount as this one. And this used to be my bigger producing breast. So this is just anecdotal, guys, anecdotal. So I'll go like a day, let's say, away from my kid. This breast, my right breast, will feel full and heavy, and I can like see the milk in the milk ducts. Oh my gosh, I need to feed my baby. It's been 12 hours. This one, small flapjack, can't even tell that there was ever any milk being produced in there at all. Now, interestingly, I nurse him on both sides still a ton. I nurse on this side a ton. He still swallows and can transfer milk from this side, but I don't think it's as much as this side. Now, I don't know what happened. Potentially actual trauma happened. Our tissue responds to trauma, and when I had them cut into that spot on my breast that's really close to my areola, and I had stitches put in, and I had physical trauma to my breast, I've talked to a few people and they think that maybe that's what triggered my breast to like slow production. It was the physical trauma. I don't know if it's that I stopped nursing on that side as much because it was painful and it was annoying with the stitches, and so for a few weeks I just stopped nursing over there, and that lowered my production, which I don't think is the case because I nurse over there still a ton, and I tried to increase nursing over there afterwards. Anyways, it's interesting. And our breasts, thank goodness we have 2 boobs, right? Because it doesn't actually matter. I think sometimes we feel like it matters. Like, I have to produce the same amount on both sides. No, I actually know a couple women who've had major breast surgery on one side and have fed their babies completely from one breast. That's why we have 2 boobs, is because twins are a thing. Being able to feed 2 babies with 2 breasts and being able to feed one baby, you really only need 1 boob. So one of the reasons I think a lot of people have like a stud and a dud or a higher producing breast is simply supply and demand. So if you were all, either right-handed or left-handed, and let's say when your baby's first born, you just are more comfortable holding them on this side. It seemed easier to get them to latch. Maybe this nipple wasn't quite as sore. So every time you put them to the other side, it was a little more sore, a little more painful, kind of awkward. Chances are without thinking about it a ton, you may have put them over here slightly more frequently. And this breast got more of the demand and therefore created more of the supply. And I think that's the more common reason we have a difference in breasts, is simply because we might not even realize it, that every time we pick up our baby, we go to feed on this boob first and then this one next, and we just are getting, or you fall asleep and you're more comfortable sleeping on this side, so you nurse on this side a heck of a lot more at night than you do on this side. So it's more of a supply and demand thing, which if it is in that case, then increasing nursing on the other side or increasing pumping on the other side could get us a little closer to evening out, or could potentially create that other side is like your big producer. So what we often see is moms with their first baby will have like one side that produces more than the other, and it's just kind of the way it is. But then they have their second baby and they experiment with doing a lot of nursing on that like dud side first. Or they think like, okay, well, this is my lower producing side, so I'm going to just really focus at the beginning with having this new baby at getting them to latch here first, getting them to eat here more often, just so I can try to make sure this one's not the slacker boob. And then often what happens is that one ends up making a ton and this one's the slacker boob. So I think most of the time it's supply and demand. For the question of like, what do I do with this slacker boob when I'm pumping? I think that the bigger question is, are you getting enough milk? Regardless of where it's coming from, if you're getting enough milk during a pumping session, that you feel comfortable leaving that amount when you are away from your baby, then it doesn't matter what boob it's coming out of. It means it could like literally almost all come from one boob and you have like half an ounce to contribute from the other boob, and that's fine. It doesn't matter what boob it comes from, and it doesn't matter if they're uneven. We would kind of expect it. The bigger question in that scenario of pumping is that if you feel like you're not making enough when you're pumping and you're away from your child, then that's a whole nother conversation of like, well, should we increase the times that we're pumping? Maybe your caregiver is giving too much milk while you're away. The goal should be 1 ounce per hour that you're away. So if you're away for an 8-hour day, you should pump 8 ounces during that 8-hour day. And for some people that have a large storage capacity, that might mean they only have to pump twice and they get 4 ounces each time they pump. Someone with a smaller storage capacity might need to pump 3 times because they're only getting 2.5 or 3 ounces per time that they pump. So storage capacity has, if you aren't familiar with this idea, it's the idea that our breasts can store different amounts of milk. Every mom can make, like if you look at the end of a 24-hour period, a lot of moms are making the same amount of milk, but the amount of time, the storage capacity ability of their breast is different. So like friends of mine who have very, very large breasts, well, Sheridan and I talk about this. We went a year ago to Glen Ivy. We were both away from our 1-year-olds for 12 hours. She, by the end of 12 hours, was like, oh, I feel kind of full. I feel like I could pump, like I could feed my baby. I had pumped twice. Now, the amount of milk we made in the day was probably exactly the same. Our babies were the same age, but my storage capacity was a lot less. So my boob's like, I'm full, get the milk out much, much sooner than hers. So depending on your storage capacity would depend on how much you need to pump at work to get the milk that you need for your baby. So, anyways, if you're not feeling like you're meeting your baby's needs, there's other conversations to be had. But meeting the baby's need with 5 ounces on one boob and 1 ounce on the other doesn't matter at all. And like I said, would be kind of expected. So you could try increasing feeding, increasing pumping on that side that's the slacker boob, and that could totally help. But if it is a structural thing or potentially a trauma thing, or you've had something happen to that breast, there might not be a lot you can do to change it being kind of the quote slacker. I'm really curious to see if I'm blessed with another baby, if this slacker boob, what it does. Because it's, like I said, still producing milk, but not nearly the same as this one. I do know that I nurse on this one more at night just because of the way that I sleep. But I'm curious to know if this, like, what will happen on this little flat boob over here if I ever have another baby. So I'll keep you all updated. All right, let me see here. Let's see. Let me open. Ryan says, I was super regulated with right, left in nursing and pumping, and oddly the slacker started right side and later somehow became the left. Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't necessarily think it's always the same boob. It's just supply and demand. All right. I do have my seatbelt on. I'm sitting in my car. I probably don't need it on, but just in case someone hits me while I'm sitting here doing this with you. I don't know. Carolina, hi friend. Carolina says that her slacker was a slacker because day 2, she fell asleep while feeding Oscar for 8 hours straight. And even 6 months later, that one's the overproducer. Yeah, exactly. That extra stimulation. I wonder, and I don't know if anyone's done research on this, and data, or Carolyn, you could tell me if you know there's any data on this, but I wonder if there's any correlation to those first few days, like in the hospital, and what boob is like the slacker and the overproducer. Like if you have the lactation consultant come in and you get a super great latch on one side and you feel really confident, but then you struggle on the other side for like the first 3 or 4 days, would that predispose your body? I don't know. I'm curious. I doubt there's anyone doing research. There's not a lot of research on breastfeeding because it doesn't make anyone money. So Carolina says you believe there is. I think there could totally be a correlation between how that first breastfeeding experience goes and what it looks like, weeks down the road. All right, let me look at what the other questions were. I'll be right back. All right, the next question we had was about sleeping and breastfeeding at night. I'm going to just preface this conversation with one, I love the book Sweet Sleep by the La Leche League. So if you are someone who has a lot of sleep questions or a lot of anxiety about sleeping with your baby or understanding newborn sleep patterns, that one is a fabulous resource. It's evidence-based. It is based from the perspective of a breastfeeding paradigm as opposed to the perspective that we have culturally that is formula feeding. A lot of the advice we give people with sleep now, or the cultural advice or expectation, is very much formula feeding expectation and not breastfeeding. So when you have a breastfed baby, they don't do the same thing that a formula fed baby does. So finding a resource like the La Leche League's Sweet Sleep book is a great resource. The other thing I will say in prefacing any conversation about sleep is I am very pro co-sleeping with your baby. I sleep with all of my babies from the minute that they are born until they choose to leave my bed, which is sometimes 3, 4, 5 years old. We have a huge family sleeping area where we're all in the same room, and my kids have full free reign to come and cuddle and be in our bed or in their own space. So I am very pro family bed, sleeping with your babies, nursing through the night. And that is the context I come from just personally. So I wanted to throw that out there before we have this conversation, because that is the world I live in, and that is my personal bias. So the question was, I've got my 5-month-old baby who still seems to be nursing every 2 to 3 hours. We're exclusively breastfeeding, but I'd like to get some more sleep. Thoughts on that. And she's sleeping in a bassinet close by. So, first of all, completely normal, unexpected behavior for a 5-month-old baby to be nursing every 2 to 3 hours at night. We have really crazy expectations in our culture that a baby should, quote, sleep through the night, should sleep a long period of time. We should be able to put them down at 7 or 8 p.m. and they won't wake up till 7 or 8 a.m. And that is just not true. It is not real for babies that are that age. I usually kind of recommend or suggest that you don't try to manipulate your child's nursing at night until they are after 1 year old. Part of the reason for that is that under the age of 1, babies are at risk for SIDS, and SIDS is sudden infant death, where they just stop breathing at night. And what we believe is that frequent breastfeeding is what is their one of their neuroprotective ways to protect them against SIDS. That when a baby wakes frequently, checks in on their environment and nurses, and then goes back to sleep and wakes frequently, checks in and nurses, that it's protective against them falling into a really deep sleep and then potentially stopping breathing. So when we push our babies to extend their sleep and sleep for longer periods, we potentially run the risk of getting them to a place where that their biology is not as protective as it could be for them. So we should be, as breastfeeding women, we should expect that our babies will feed frequently at night. We should expect that they will wake every 2 to 3 hours at night, especially when they're in a growth spurt, maybe more frequently. They may go little stretches that are longer during periods of time, but under the age of 1, there should be an expectation that our babies feed a lot at night, and that is part of the way that they keep themselves safe. They're checking in with us. They're making sure that everything's okay in their environment, and they're more protected that way. Their brain's more protected. So with that, the other thing I want to add in is when research was done, and we have this like sleeping through the night phrase, like, oh, is your baby, and this is cultural crud is what it is. When people ask, oh, was your baby sleeping through the night? Because, my baby was sleeping through the night at da-da-da-da-da. Or your doctor says, your baby's 5 months old now, they should be sleeping through the night. There's a big misunderstanding about this phrase, sleeping through the night. When the research was done that babies around the age of 6 months can, quote, sleep through the night, what that meant in the research was 1 5-hour stretch at night. That a 6-month-old baby could be expected, and it would be normal for them to do 1 5-hour stretch at night. And that was considered sleeping through the night. For some reason, it got twisted and turned into this 10 to 12 hour expectation that our babies are going to just be put down in a crib in another room and sleep for 10 hours. And then we've accomplished something as a parent because our kid now sleeps through the night. And that's not what it is. That's not the expectation, and that's not normal child behavior. So, with the context and the expectation of breastfed babies need to sleep or breastfeed during the nighttime, did you guys know one of the biggest risk factors for SIDS is formula feeding? And part of the reason for that, they believe, is that formula fed babies take way, way, way more milk than a breastfed baby does, and they sleep way longer and deeper. So breastfeeding is already this protective thing because of breast milk, because of the hormones, but also because of the frequency in which babies will eat. So if we look from the context of a breastfeeding lens, with the expectation that our babies should wake really frequently, and that when they're 6 months old, there's a chance they might have 1 5-hour stretch, then I would venture to say a lot of people probably fall into that, and that's probably pretty normal. They might be able to put their baby, let's say their baby cluster feeds, meaning literally on the breast all the time from 5 to 8 p.m., right when you're trying to make dinner and all those things, They want to feed constantly. And then from 8 p.m., they fall asleep. And they sleep soundly, let's say, until 1. Oh, there's their sleeping through the night, 5-hour stretch. Then they wake up at 1 to feed. Then they wake up at 3 to feed. They wake up at 5 to feed. And they wake up at 7 to feed. And they're up for the day. Now, most moms, I'll tell you what happens for most moms in our country. We put them down at 8 and we go, oh, thank God. That was a long day. I need a break. I'm finally going to have a conversation with my husband. I'm finally going to eat a meal. I'm going to get that laundry done that I didn't get done earlier. And I want to clean up this house a little bit. And we stay up doing things, watching our favorite show on Netflix, whatever it might be, taking care of ourselves until 11. And then we fall asleep at 11. And 2 hours rolls around and our baby's awake. And we're like, oh my gosh, this baby's up. I'm so tired. I just went to bed. Why are you up right now? And then they're up at 1, and they're up at 3, and they're up at 5, and they're up at 7. And we're like, what happened? I'm getting no sleep. I'm exhausted. So that behavior is perfect. Let me tell you another fun fact. Your hormones for making milk are highest between 1 and 5 a.m. Babies know this. Babies who want to make sure that you have a good milk supply for them will eat between 1 and 5 a.m. A lot. Maybe even every hour. So we have to change ourselves. Our baby's behavior is perfect. And then what we find most of the time is your babies are perfect. It's our expectations that are incorrect, and it's us that have to adjust, which is really hard because we want babies to come and fit into our schedules perfectly. I want my baby to come and be I want it to sleep in its crib perfectly. I want it to fall asleep when I want it to fall asleep. I don't want to have to change my life very much. This baby's going to fit into my life perfectly. And that's just not reality. We have to shift a lot. Babies come and they're the ones who are perfect. And their behavior is perfect and expected. And usually nothing's wrong with it. It's our expectation and our behavior that has to change. So that might mean that you have to go to bed at 8 o'clock. When you put your baby down. And that might mean you and your husband have to find other times to hang out, or you might need to watch your favorite show another time, or you might need to find someone who can come and help you do the laundry and the dishes so you don't feel like you have to stay up late at night and do it, or something to adjust so that you can go to bed at 8, so that when your baby wakes up to feed at 1, you go, oh, I feel fine. I had 5 hours, and now I get to just cuddle and nurse for the rest of the night, but I got a 5-hour chunk and my body feels really well rested. The other thing that we know is that when babies sleep close to their mommies, they sleep cycle together, which means when the baby's in light sleep and wants to eat, the mommy's in light sleep and able to respond and feed, then they fall into deep sleep together. Then they cycle to light sleep, feed, fall into deep sleep together. So when a baby is far away from a mom, chances of them cycling together are very, very minimal, which means a baby might be in light sleep wanting to feed. A mom's in deep sleep. So that baby now wrestles around. Mommy doesn't respond. They've got to get to screaming and crying before they wake their mom out of deep sleep, because a mom in deep sleep is not going to wake very easily. Now she's woken out of deep sleep. Oh my gosh, run in, get the baby, calm the baby down, shush the baby, get him to feed, get him back down. This is a whole process, right? Now mom's got a little adrenaline because she was woken out of deep sleep. She's not able to fall back asleep right away. Baby's got some adrenaline because they were screaming, trying to get mom's attention. They're not able to fall asleep right away. And mom, woken out of deep sleep, feels like she's been hit by a truck. So when we have that kind of cycle, when babies and moms are not sleeping close to each other, it's disastrous. And women think that breastfeeding is the problem. Like, if I wasn't breastfeeding, everything would be fine. If I wasn't breastfeeding, my baby would sleep through the night for 12 hours in their crib alone in another room. Probably not true. But breastfeeding is not the problem. The problem is that you're too far away from each other, and that we need babies sleeping as close as possible. So what we know, and what you'd read in the Sweet Sleep, is what we know is that when babies are in bed with their mommies, right next to them, moms get the best sleep. They cycle with their babies into light sleep, they feed, they latch babies on and go right back to sleep without having to sit up, and like it really getting vertical can be a problem. So if you can stay horizontal for the whole night, you're going to feel much more well rested than if you have to get up and get your baby and then lay back down. Even if it just means getting up to get your baby from a bassinet that's close by, that could be enough that your brain's like, oh, we're up. Oh no, we're not up, and confused. So I usually suggest that we find a sleep situation where babies can be as close as possible that feels good to you. Now, if you're thinking like red alarms, like, I'm not sleeping with my baby, that's really scary, I would once again encourage you to read into it, look at the data and the research around actual co-sleeping. The actual data says a baby that's sleeping with an exclusively breastfeeding mother is at its lowest risk for SIDS and the safest. But you have to read it for yourself. You got to figure out what works for your family. Once again, I told you I'm coming from a bias of sleeping with my kids. So I believe it's what's working for our family, and you have to do what works for your family. So I'm by no means saying every person has to sleep with their baby. You need to do what works for your family. But no, biologically, your body's going to do better if you don't have to sit up. And if you can stay laying down, scoot your baby close to you, latch them on while you're in light sleep. So now your baby goes, and you hear them and you, oh, come here. Because you're in light sleep and they're in light sleep. You get them close. They don't even open their eyes. They latch on and you both fall back into deep sleep. A couple hours later, you get into light sleep. They go, you're in light sleep, so you hear them, you pull them close, you maybe switch sides so your boobs aren't all lopsided, and they fall back to sleep. Babies and moms who are in that kind of pattern nurse frequently at night, but feel like they can function. So that would be my 2 cents on sleeping. And at 5 months, I would absolutely expect a baby to nurse a lot at night. Maybe in a month from now, getting close to having 1 5-hour stretch, maybe. But keeping in mind, you guys, anytime your baby goes through a growth spurt, a brain growth spurt or a physical growth spurt, their sleeping and their eating are going to be wacky. So if you have like 3 nights in a row where your baby's doing this 5-hour stretch and you're so excited, you're like, we did it, we made it, our baby now sleeps well, yay for us. Don't expect that to stay. Yay for you for right now. But the minute your baby goes into another growth spurt in their brain or their body, that's all going to change again. They're going to be waking frequently. If they get sick, they're going to be nursing like crazy. Like, this is constantly changing. It's not on trajectory like this. It is like this. Like, parenting is like this. There's no predictable, just because something happened today, it's going to happen tomorrow in parenting, especially under a 1-year-old. Things get slightly more predictable after 1, but under 1, we just need to feed them a lot, cuddle with them a lot, keep them as close to us as possible, address their needs as fast as we possibly can. I hope this is making sense. All right, let me see here. All right, yay. Okay, so oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad this is helpful. Let me look at what the other questions were. So I have them screenshotted on I'll be right back. Hold on. Question from Carmen. And her question was, can I continue to use Lanolin while I'm pregnant? So breastfeeding, 18-month-old and pregnant. And man, that is no joke. Your nipples get so sore. And this is the interesting thing, you guys. A lot of times moms think once you've made it through that initial soreness with breastfeeding, your nipples will never be sore again. But that initial soreness often has to do with baby's latch. And so your nipples won't be sore again due to baby, because baby's got it figured out. But your nipples may be sore due to you. And what I mean by that is hormone shifts. A lot of times moms get sore nipples during their period, during ovulation, or if they're pregnant and they have a shift in their hormones. So if you are breastfeeding and pregnant and your nipples are killing you, I am so sorry. I feel for you. I did it twice and it was hard. But you can do it. You can do it. And yes, you can use Lanolin. You can use nipple creams. If they are safe for breastfeeding, they are safe for you to use during your pregnancy. That is no problem at all. And the other part of her question was, will my baby miss out on colostrum if I'm nursing an older child? So here this is such a cool thing that our bodies do. And I literally just left. The reason I was a couple minutes late jumping on today is I just left my friend Berlin, who just had a new baby, almost 2 weeks old. She is still nursing her 2.5-year-old. She's doing a rock star job right now. And so let's talk a little bit about that. When you are breastfeeding and pregnant, at about somewhere around 17 weeks of pregnancy, your body starts making colostrum again. So your bigger kid, your 18-month-old, 19-month-old who's nursing, will start getting colostrum, and they will move colostrum. So your body will cater to the smaller baby. So cater to the baby that's growing inside. So your body will cater nutrients to your placenta and to the baby that's growing inside, and nutrients to the breast will be secondary. So a lot of times people say, like, oh, well, you can't breastfeed while you're pregnant. The baby inside your body won't get enough nutrients if the nursing baby is taking it all. And that's just not true. Your body caters to the littler one. So your body will grow a baby and your body can make milk. Now, some women find that they feel like they dry up during pregnancy. Some women feel like they continue to produce a good amount of milk during pregnancy. Every woman's body is really different. But what we know is around 17 to 20 weeks, you're going to be making colostrum instead of mature milk. And so it's a much smaller volume, but it's really sweet and it's still packed full of nutrients and antibodies. It's wonderful for your toddlers, and they're going to get colostrum every time they feed. You might feel it like kind of slower as it moves through. They might have to seem to work a little bit more at the breast to move colostrum, but the reality is you will keep making colostrum until your little one is out and about 1 to 2 days old. So your body will cater, even if you're nursing an older baby, to the younger one. And your older child will get colostrum for all of pregnancy. And then once the new baby is born, your body will absorb the saliva of the infant and cater its transition from colostrum to mature milk based on the new baby. So your bigger kid's just going to help move milk. When you're engorged at the beginning, your bigger kid's like the perfect pump. They can move all of that amazing milk and help you not get infections and mastitis and clogged ducts and all that stuff. But your body will always cater to the younger baby, and based on the saliva that your body's absorbing will cater to that younger baby. If you chose to have one baby feed on one boob and so like your newborn feed on one boob and your 2-year-old feed on the other boob, your breast would actually make different milk for each baby. This breast, due to the saliva of the 2-year-old, would cater milk to the 2-year-old, and this breast, due to saliva of the newborn, would cater milk to the newborn. But most of the time, moms just switch back and forth, and therefore both breasts are going to be catering milk to the newborn. And that 2-year-old's just going to get yummy newborn milk and colostrum until the baby comes. So I hope that makes sense and answers that question for Carmen. All right, let me look at the next. All right, so last question, Lauren, I'm going to respond to yours real quick. I hope you're still here. So Lauren's question is around her son's got RSV and not like able to breathe super well and is therefore not nursing quite as much. And you said you woke up in pain the other morning and was trying to hand express and not getting very much milk out, and wondering what to do about that. So, first of all, I'm so sorry he's sick. That's just awful. Hey, Lauren. All right, I'm glad you're back. I'm just about to respond to your question. So first of all, I'm sorry he's sick. Any type of respiratory stuff is so hard with breastfeeding, especially if they can't breathe through their nose while they're nursing. It's always the worst, right? They're like trying to latch and they're like, I'm trying to breathe, and oh, so hard. I'm so sorry. So just one of the cool things, fun fact to know about breast milk and breastfeeding is breast milk, often when babies are nursing, especially newborns, but even as they get older, they might like cough and choke and like, nose or milk can sometimes go like up their nose and into their ears, and milk when it goes through all the sinuses, into the ear sinuses and into the nose sinuses, actually is really good for our sinuses and can actually help to like clean out and sterilize. It's got amazing live antibodies in it, so that can clean out all those sinuses. So you could, if you're doing like any little bit, I don't shoot stuff up his nose, but like if like neti potting type stuff for the nose, you can always do that with a little bit of milk. If you've got ear infections and stuff, you can drop breast milk into the ears. Even if kids like aspirate and they breathe in breast milk, it's actually protective and fine and not a concern like aspirating other things would be. So God's amazing. It's created this amazing system where breast milk is just going to go in and be helpful no matter where it goes into our body. So my biggest suggestion for you, Lauren, is one, don't stress about your supply. Even if he goes through this little illness and he's not nursing a ton, your body is well established and will respond to him as soon as he's back to nursing real frequently. It's not a problem that he might go a few days without nursing very much. Two, you just got to avoid getting mastitis and clogged ducts. So yes, you're doing the right thing. Massage, getting in a hot shower, massaging your breasts, hand expressing, remembering that you might have to massage for like 2 to 3 minutes before you can expect to get very much milk out, leaning forward and doing the milkshake. But if we just like go and start squeezing our boobs and like, why isn't there any milk coming out? You didn't stimulate a letdown. So you have to stimulate a letdown in order to get milk moving. So you've got to massage and really relax. That's why being in a nice hot shower can be a great place to do that. Just massage. And then once you have the letdown happen, you can kind of squeeze and get some of that milk to move. But I would, just feed him as often as he wants. If you have a haka or a way of catching milk on the other side, like when he stimulates a letdown, that's a great time to massage the other breast, even if it's just squeezing milk into a towel. Like if he gets a letdown to happen, a letdown happens on both sides, so you can move that milk on the other side, which can be really, really helpful. And just trying to follow his lead, feed him when he needs it. If you really feel like, oh my gosh, my boobs are going to explode, they hurt so bad, then you need to get in the shower and massage and hand express, or get a pump or a haka or a hand. I think hand pumps are the best. I love my hand pump, especially for situations like this, where you don't really need to sit down at an electric pump. You just need to be able to massage a little bit and move a little bit of milk. So that would be my suggestion to you, is get a hand pump if you don't have one. And then that would be your backup plan for if you feel like your boobs are way, way, way too full. And I'm sorry he's sick. Hopefully he will be getting better very, very soon. All right. Are there any other questions that we can answer real quick? I've got like a couple minutes left here in our hour to answer any questions. Let me scroll back up and see if there were any questions posted. You're welcome, Lauren. All right. Let's see here. If you were to, quote, wet nurse or breastfeed a newborn without being pregnant, would your body try to make colostrum, or would the transition happen so fast that it just the newborn second day or mature milk? That's a great question. I'm not 100% sure. What I do know is that when my son was about 1, my second son, my sister-in-law had her first, and they were really, really struggling. He had a lot of ties. She had flat nipples. Like, it was a really, really, really big challenge. And the first 2 or 3 days, I helped nurse him. And it was fascinating. I did not connect it the first time it happened. The first time I went and nursed him, I, once again, was nursing a 1-year-old. I went and I nursed this brand new newborn baby, and he was so sweet. And then I went back to my in-laws' house, and I felt so sick. I had a pounding headache. I felt really hungry, really nauseous, almost achy. And I'm like, oh, it was so weird. Like that came on out of nowhere. I hope I'm not getting sick. I was just with this newborn. I ate, I slept, I drank, I felt better. Nursed him again, like that next day, and it happened again. And what I realized, what I think happened, I have no data to back this, but what I think happened is that my body went, oh my gosh, we have a newborn? We're making newborn milk now? And it pulled nutrients from my body that a newborn needed that was different than what my 1-year-old needed. And I felt it. Like, I felt awful and sick and drained and had a headache. And like, my body was like, what? I didn't know we were nursing a newborn now. And so had I adopted him and he was my baby and I was now nursing him full time, my body would have made a really big shift and I would have had to eat a lot more. And like, I probably would have felt awful for a few days while my body was trying to adjust to this different nutrient, like the depletion of needing to feed a newborn and a 1-year-old. But it was sporadic. And so I felt awful a few times, but I wasn't feeding him full time. So I don't know the answer to your question as to whether your body would make colostrum or if your body would make more of like newborn mature milk. But I know that your body tries to adjust to the saliva of that child. So whatever that child's nutrient needs are is what your body's going to try to meet, which if your body's not used to meeting it can be really hard and really challenging. And this happened actually a second time of what happened with Sheridan. She nursed a tiny newborn and the same thing was like, oh my gosh, my body. And so it's fascinating, but your body's just like goes and pulls all that nutrients. Sometimes moms think too, like it depends on what you eat. Like, oh, I want to have healthier milk, so I'm going to like make sure I have my avocados so my milk has more fat or whatever. But none of that is real. Like as long as you are eating food, your body is going to take the nutrients it needs for the baby. So sometimes that means like in this situation, like being really feeling like drained of nutrients because my body was not ready to give what a newborn needed, but it still did, which is what's interesting. It just made me feel ugh. So anyways, I don't know if that answers that question, but it's interesting, huh? What our bodies can do. All right, let's see here. You're welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you guys jumped on. I'm looking back to sleep. I love co-sleeping too, but she would wake every hour to feed. Yeah, and so this is hard. And you were exhausted. It's hard. Sometimes co-sleeping babies can feed frequently. I'm in that situation right now with my babies feeding a lot. But it's so hard to know. It's so hard to know if what they're doing is like a normal cycle and it just happens to correlate, or if there's a true correlation between babies being close and wanting to nurse more. I think sometimes them being able to smell mom and feel mom, they want to connect more, but I think sometimes it's maybe just a growth spurt too. Anyways, I don't know. It's hard. Sleeping is a hard thing. All right. I'm just looking back to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I am working to get these uploaded to YouTube so that you can watch them again or send them to someone that you think might find some of the information helpful. I'm trying to put in the detail, like the notes section, what topics we cover in each one so that it's a little easier to send them or share them. But anyways, I hope you guys are having a good day. Oh, I wore this shirt. I wore this shirt on purpose, and now I had a sweatshirt on the whole time and you guys couldn't even see it. Look at how cute this is. Support your fellow mother. I got this from our little downtown shop. So I'm glad you're all here supporting each other. Thank you for being part of our community. Remember, if you have any friends or family that are pregnant or breastfeeding and you want to add them into this group, add them in. This is open for anyone. You do not have to be local. This is for anyone. I'm also currently working on putting together an online breastfeeding course. I really would like to offer an online course to pregnant moms. So I'll probably be asking for your guys' help on the information that you wish you knew when you were pregnant, or the things you wish you had learned in a class, so that I can put together a really great class to offer to moms online. Because I miss teaching so much and I love sharing all this knowledge. So thank you guys, and I will see you next week. Same time, same place, every Saturday at 10 o'clock. And yeah, thanks again for joining me. Have a really beautiful Saturday. We're gonna go take family photos today, so excited. All right, we'll see you guys later. Bye.